Do you remember the old game Survive, which was a fun game but also pretty mean as you were sinking parts of the island in order to get your opponents in trouble? Well, now we have a game Volcanic Isle that shares some ideas with that beloved classic, but it has now more stuff that can sink, more diplomacy, and also it is a lot meaner. Yes, it is. Now, Volcanic Isle is a competitive game. It is played on a board which is formed using modular tiles, so you can use different ones each time, and this is just an example of a possible island that you can create. There are volcanoes, there will always be those volcano pieces, but again, those tiles can be placed in different configurations with different tiles around them, so you can have vastly different islands. Players will colonize the island, they will send their settlers there, they will build villages, and also they will build and then erect moais. As they do so, they upset the geology of the island starts sinking, different pieces of the board will be removed with the stuff that was on it going under the sea. And the game will be over when only 2 or fewer volcanoes are left on the island. At that point, you score points. You also score points as you go during the game. Basically, you will score points for creating clusters of villages and moais, and you will also score points for still having stuff on the board at the end of the game, when the board will be considerably smaller than what you see here. The players have boats, they will place them next to the board at the beginning of the game, and then you will debark your first settler from the board, and from there you'll start moving the settler, adding more settlers, making babies, hooray, etc, etc, etc. The game is an action point game. That means that each turn you have 4 action points, which you can spend to take the same action multiple times or any combination of actions, with an exception. One of the actions is to acquire a prayer token, and you can only perform this action once per turn. All the other actions can be repeated in any order as you desire. When you want to take the first prayer token, that is when you don't have a prayer, the first one that you acquire costs 1 action point. If you already have 1, taking a second costs 2 action points, then 3, then 4. They become increasingly more expensive. Other than that special thing, if you have a settler on the board, to move a settler from one area to another area, now, the rulebook is a little ambiguous about what counts as an area, what counts as a section. We imagine, because we believe that's the way it is, that the board is divided in hexagons. So when the rulebook tells us that it costs 1 movement point to move a settler from an area to another, we imagine that means from one hex to the other. Again, I don't know if we played the game 100% right, but it seems that way because the game made sense and we enjoyed it, so that's how I'm going to teach you the game. I'm going to teach you the game as we played it. So it costs 1 movement point to move from one hex to another. It costs 1 action point. It costs 2 action points to build a village. And as you can see, there are these lava tokens on the board. You place them in all of those dark areas departing from volcanoes at the beginning of the game during setup, and also you place them in all those dark areas in hexes that do not have volcanoes, so there will be a lot of these lava tokens. You spend 2 action points when you have a settler in the same area where there is a lava token, and you replace the lava token with a village. We're very smart people. As you can see, we're building villages as close as possible to volcanoes. Actually, later in the game, more tokens may be added, so you may have a little bit of a buffer as you build your village by replacing a lava token. 2 action points for a village. 1 action point to make babies. Yay, babies! 1 action point to sculpt a moai. And to sculpt a moai, again, you replace a lava token in an area where you have settlers. The same restriction, of course, applies to villages. You need to have a settler there too. Build a village. Also, as you move, if you move in an area with a moai, you can carry a moai with you for free because they are notoriously so light and convenient to carry around. They made them with little handles and little wheels at the bottom. That's awesome. So, 1 action point to sculpt a moai and 1 action point to raise a moai. Again, you need to be in an area with one of your moais and one of your settlers at least, and one of these holes here, because we are smart people. Where do we raise the moais? On top of these volcanic vents here, so that we block them, so that we increase the pressure on the island and we make things more unstable. When you place a moai, it will always be next to the edge of one of the hexes, and if it is an hex that does not have a fixture yet, you place a token like this to show the river of lava that just came out because you placed a cork on that vent. Very important, these cannot be crossed because we don't want to hurt our feet, so you cannot move across these fixtures. So maybe after a while, as the game progresses, we have a situation like this, and later like this, and so on and so forth. So as the game progresses, different areas of the board may become very hard to get access to. Finally, they may become completely sealed off. That is, you may have an area which is entirely included within fixtures, within lava rivers and the sea. And when that is the case, like in this case, the section disappears. It simply sinks and is removed from the board. That can be huge. It can be one big sinking which is so massive that you have to count hexes, because it is always the smallest section that goes down. Almost half of the island may disappear in a single move, although it means that players worked quite a bit. It takes a while to create such a long river of lava, but that would be the case, and this part will be removed. Everything that is there is removed with the exception of some settlers. The player that caused the sinking gets to relocate all of their settlers in a single area adjacent to the section that just disappeared. All the other players only get to save one of their settlers. Another important idea is that volcanoes will erupt from time to time. So when you build one of your moais, something that you also need to do is to roll this die here. Maybe nothing will happen, maybe a volcano will erupt. When that is the case, you draw a random token from this stack here to indicate which volcano will erupt. Oh, volcano number 1. When a volcano erupts, you simply add lava tokens in all of the areas next to it, that do not have a lava token yet. If there was something there, say there was a moai that was still there and the volcano erupts, then the lava token replaces the game piece. So basically lava tokens may destroy moais that are still laying down and or villages, unless you have a prayer, in which case you can spend a prayer token to prevent a lava token from being placed where you have a moai or a village, and that of course protects the little game piece that you wanted to protect. So as the game progresses, the island becomes smaller and smaller, and you continue building and destroying until there are only 2 or fewer volcanoes left. Just to give you an example of how small the island may become from what you saw at the beginning. When that is the case, you score points. Well, you also score points as you build stuff. Scoring can sound a little convoluted, so I'm simply going to show you the section of the rule book where it is explained, so that you can pause if you so desire and get a better sense. This is what the things that you score during the game. Again, pretty much you score if you build clusters of villages and moais as close to each other as possible. So you put all of your eggs in one basket and then the basket sinks. And at the end of the game, you again score for stuff that you still have on the island, plus again patterns of moais that are close to each other, put all of your eggs in a basket, and then the basket sinks, and or really watch it really, really closely. This is how you play Volcanic Isle. Well, what a surprise. The game is absolutely not what I expected from reading the rules and just looking at the components. And that really shows you why games, in a sense, do not exist until you add players and the interaction starts. I expected a fairly conventional Euro game of building, spending action points, get your engine, accelerate your point production, precisely because the more moais and villages you have in an area, the more points you score. It seemed fairly traditional with, of course, an element of take that as you start sinking areas of the island. Actually, the Euro element turned out to be maybe 30% of the game. 70, if not more, percent of the game was diplomacy. As players start placing their setters on the board and they look at the different lines that may be created by those lava rivers, based on how the island has been built, the possibility for alliances immediately emerges and players start working together. Why don't we work to sink that part? And then a player's like, well, why don't we work to prevent them from doing so, and we sink that part first. And alliances switch as, in fact, the lines start being drawn quite literally on the board. You realize that, well, by placing a single river of lava here, instead of here, you're sinking different areas. You're changing majority. Maybe not a single one, but two that go in this way instead of this way. Then a different part of the island sinks. So you have that extremely precarious situation, not just geologically, but most importantly, anthropologically, socially around the table. I don't remember having such heated diplomatic discussions around the game in a while. This is basically a diplomatic game with a really mean component hidden or rolled into what otherwise seems to be a fairly abstract Euro game, which is not. It was all about the human interaction, and we had such strong emotions and feelings going on, and there are just so many different things, in fact, that you can do to annoy the heck out of other people, to prevent them from doing things. Some quote-unquote obvious things. I placed the moai where I knew that you needed it to score more points. Oh, I'm gonna start converting all of these lava tokens into moais and villages, not because I need them there, but because you needed them more. And actually causing scarcity by grabbing lava tokens right and left, converting them into stuff early on can be an advantage. But then, of course, you have all of your stuff that is scattered around, and, well, you backstab people in the back, and I hope you enjoyed that. But maybe then actually going back and picking up your moais and putting them somewhere that matters may not be all that great. And again, drawing lines to sink the opponent may be a lot of fun, if you can pull it off, but then maybe you didn't spend a lot of time building your engines otherwise. The Euro element is not completely replaced, but yes, ultimately it is, I think, secondary. Because if my great engine is there, I was able to score it a couple of times, but it goes down as soon as I put it together or halfway through. Then the great engines that are at the bottom of the ocean are still useless. And so the diplomatic element is the most important, because you can cause immense damage, but not alone. If you find yourself at the bottom of the ocean, it's not just because it randomly happened, but because somebody put it there, and usually it was more than one person working for a while towards the great goal of drowning your civilization. It's intense. It's an intense game. I don't think it's a universal pleaser. So I know a lot of players I would not want to play with. I know the kind of mean players that really enjoyed it. And I was lucky enough that the night that we played the game, we played it with those people. And it was intense. Other players on the other side of the board were playing other stuff, and they could hear us. We were getting loud, we were getting excited, we were getting like blaming each other. It's an intense game. It's a diplomatic game for players that have a heart of stone, so to speak, and nerves of steel. and can take some really heavy emotional hits, but also then may enjoy the possibility of inflicting those. Volcanic Isle, not what I expected. An absolutely direct, confrontational diplomatic game where you also build some point engines here and there. But again, ultimately, if you're at the bottom of the ocean, those engines are worth nothing. Not for everybody, not definitely a universal crowd pleaser. A game that has nice production, as the components really neat, look really neat. The rulebook has some areas that leave to desire. I'm not entirely sure, in fact, that we played it right, but what we played, we liked. So if we found a variant, it's a variant that we liked, not a variant that I will play with everybody, because again, it's hard. It's a tough game from the point of view of how intense you want to cry from time to time. That's my assessment of Volcanic Isle. Mean, but fun.